What is up? Welcome into Happy Hour. I'm keeping Justice Mosqueda's heart on the entire time. I'm probably not going to do that, but I might. Just if I knew you were going to be in here, I just would have invited you so you could have, came and talked with us live on the show. But welcome everyone. Welcome to the Pack a Day Podcast Happy Hour. I'm your host Andy Herman. I really appreciate you guys joining me. Start asking those questions. I don't want to have to think. I've got my Door County cherry wheat. I don't have to come up with content to talk about. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff. Training camp's been really fun this week. Today was definitely more of a walkthrough, really boring kind of practice, but we had some live punting stuff. What more could you possibly want than 14 punts by Pat O'Donnell? Sounds probably like a week 16 game, but I digress. And ask those questions, guys, and I will do my best to answer. Any super chats or stickers will go to the top of the line, and I will absolutely answer those for sure. But again, I get to as many questions as I possibly can, super chat or not. Adam, we'll start really easy. Thank you for the easiest question in the world to start off with. They will not be in pads on Saturday. It will be open to the public on Saturday. It will be a live practice, not a walkthrough or a 50% practice, anything like that, but not in pads. The first padded practice will be on Monday, as Justice said. Let's put the heart back on. Do I expect a 60-yarder from Anders Carlson this year? Thanks for the chat, Doug. No, I do not expect a 60-yarder, but dude has a really ridiculous leg. As I've mentioned before, you can hear the ball just come off of his foot like different. It sounds great, like kind of like hitting the sweet spot of a baseball bat. So he's got a leg. He's going to use it certainly on kickoffs. I think that's going to be something that Green Bay didn't really have with Mason Crosby towards the end is just the ability to attempt some of those longer field goals and to kick some of those, kickoffs through the through the end zone, through the back of the end zone. So definitely think that's going to be a weapon, but a weapon's only as good as, as accurate as he can be. So it's great that he has a big leg, but if he can't be accurate on field goals, it's going to be an issue. But so far, so good for Anders Carlson. And it seems like they got a nice kicker. MU Golden Eagle, what games am I going to go to this year? Well, I'll be at all of the home games in the press box. I do not believe I'm going to hit any road games this year. I will be, I think, at the Vikings home game in the stands, and there's a chance I might be at the Buccaneers game in the stands as well. So yeah, there's a couple games that I'm looking at. Definitely want to take my oldest, who is now 9 years old, to a game in our season tickets. It's something I haven't really been able to do so far, and definitely want to do that. And then usually go once a year with some friends in a 4-pack, and might be able to do that as well, but we'll see. But for sure, we'll be at all the home games in some capacity, whether that's in the stands or in the press box. All right, can the Packers change the offseason schedule like Bakhtiari suggested today, or is that a league schedule? I didn't hear what Bakhtiari said. Thanks for the chat, by the way. But no, I don't think they're changing anything up too much at this point. I think they ultimately can change up their practice schedule as much as they would like. Obviously, they can't add like more padded practices or things like that. But they can change up their practice schedule the way that they seem fit, assuming it's within league guidelines. But again, I'm not sure exactly what he said. Let's see. Justice, any hints on who's playing the X so far? Look like Watson in the clips I saw from Big B. I'm going to be honest, Justice, I haven't been keeping super close track. They've been rotate like with every position. I noted it today. Let's see if I have it up here. Still, I do. Here were the players who played with the ones on offense in some capacity today. Jordan Love, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Patrick Taylor, Lou Nichols, Romeo Doubs, Samori Toure, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Malik Heath, Luke Musgrave, Tyler Davis, Josiah DeGuara, David Bakhtiari, Yosh Nijman, Zach Tom, Elton Jenkins, John Runyon Jr., Royce Newman, and Josh Myers. Those are all the players that played with the ones in some capacity, rotating in and out. Now, on the Jordan Love side of the field, everyone else was on the other side with all the other players. You don't want to be with the others. You want to be on the Jordan Love side. And so they've been rotating players so much that I haven't honestly looked at who's been playing outside, inside, etc. I know Jaden Reed's been a ton in the slot. Samori's played quite a bit in the slot. They used Tyler Goodson a little bit on Thursday in some of those slot, like Tyler Irvin-esque roles. But outside, I know has primarily been Dobbs and Watson. I think a little bit of Toure. But honestly, Justice, I haven't looked close enough to see who's been in the X. I will do my best on Saturday to keep an eye on that for you. Who didn't struggle today? Gary, nobody struggled today. Today was a walkthrough. The only people who struggled today were the media members who were trying to figure out things to talk about, write about, tweet about, etc. in a practice full of 14 punts by Pat O'Donnell, walkthroughs, and not a whole heck of a lot else to talk about. So that was the struggle today, was for your favorite media members. Been hearing good things about Carrington Valentine. Thoughts, Stephen? I am in love with Carrington Valentine, and I'm not afraid to say it. No, he had a couple really nice plays in OTAs and mini camps that caught my eye, specifically against Romeo Dobbs. And then on Thursday, he had a pass breakup against Christian Watson. And listen, it can't be easy to keep up with Christian Watson in general. But the fact that he was able to close on the ball the way that he did, and then use his length to go up and bat a ball away from Christian Watson, who obviously has great length as well. Not an easy play for anyone, much less a rookie corner. He's got great speed. He's got great size. He has the swagger and confidence of a corner that you love to see. There is a long way to go for Carrington Valentine. The odds are that he's much more nothing than he is something still, but I love him and I'm super excited about him. And I think that there is a legitimate chance that he can become a really good player in Green Bay. Let's see what happens when the pads come on. Obviously everything's been on, just shells and stuff so far, but overall really, really excited with what I've seen from Carrington Valentine through OTAs and mini camps and training camp in, yes, early and no pads, but I don't know what more he could have done at this point so far. Adam S., who has stood out so far? It's still super early. I thought Devondre Campbell had a really nice first day of practice. Christian Watson had 2 touchdowns yesterday. I just talked about Carrington Valentine, who has definitely stood out on a couple different plays. Isaiah McDuffie's had a good camp. Luke Tenuta, I thought, has performed well when given opportunities so far. Had a couple of really nice plays in pass pro against Lucas Van Ness. Let's see who else. Keyshawn Nixon's looked really good in the slot outside of one play that he gave up against Toure at the end of practice on Wednesday. And then I thought Jair Alexander's just been absolutely dominant, absolutely beyond dominant so far at corner as well. So those are a few players who have stood out so far. Amar, thanks so much, man. Always appreciate you on Twitter and all your support. You are absolutely amazing. All right. Odds on both Watson and Dobbs both hitting 1,000 yards this season. I would say I wouldn't bet on that. They both have the capability of being 1,000-yard wide receivers. I think this offense is going to be a work in progress. We've seen some of that already. The defense is ahead of the offense so far, which is normal at this point. Even when Rodgers was QBing in his prime, it was always the defense that was ahead early on in camp. So that's normal at this point of year, but they're going to have every opportunity. But these are 2 still young wide receivers. They're going to rotate those wide receivers a lot. We're going to see Jaden Reed. We're going to see some Samori Toure, might see some Malik Heath. So I think they're going to be pretty liberal with rotating guys around. Luke Musgrave is going to be a guy that gets targets. They're going to go with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon a lot in the backfield. So I would expect that this is an offense that is going to take some time to go through some of the bumps through the course of the season, and that they're going to rotate a lot of these young guys in and out of the lineup. So Dobbs and Watson going to play a ton. They're going to have all the opportunity. They're both really good football players, and it's certainly possible that it could happen. But I wouldn't certainly bet on it this upcoming season, especially with a first-time starter where we're all not exactly quite sure yet exactly, how good he's going to be in his first year as a starter. All right, Dylan, thanks so much. How long do you think it will take Reed to take the wide receiver 3 job from Toure? Also, how has Toure looked? I've really liked both of these receivers so far, honestly. I think Toure's had a really nice start to camp. We would be talking more about Toure had Love hit him in stride and kept him in bounds in that first practice. That probably would have been like a, 20, 30-yard gain on one play. And then he had a deep crosser where he was able to run after the catch on the last, play of Wednesday's practice. He had a couple catches, I believe, on Thursday as well. Overall, I've really liked what I've seen from Toure, but then Jaden Reed on Thursday's practice had the touchdown in the back of the end zone. And then he also had that end around. I think both of those have, can be found on Twitter if you're looking for those videos out there. Thanks, Big B. I know at least to one of those. But yeah, overall, I've been really excited about both of them. And I think they're both going to play a lot. I think if there's any indication so far, those 4 and Malik Heath, so Dobbs, Watson, Reed, Toure, and potentially Malik Heath in the conversation right now, it's so hard. I think Dontavian Wicks probably would have gotten some time already, just, if he would have been able to stay healthy. But unfortunately, he had that early concussion, and now he's going to be out for a little bit. And then, we'll see. Grant DuBose hasn't been able to practice yet, right? Bo Melton had a touchdown the other day with the threes. But I think overall, you're going to see these, all these wide receivers have opportunities. And we'll see. I like I said, I think both of these guys are going to get a lot of opportunities, specifically in the slot, and both Toure and Reed going to play quite a bit. All right, what else do we got here? Where did you get the picture behind you? Thanks, Owen. I believe it was just on Amazon, to be honest, but I honestly don't 1,000,000% remember. But if you search Packers art, this is certainly one of the ones that will come up. Do I expect Brenton Cox to make the final 53? Still far, far, far too early. And again, we'll have to wait till pads come on and to see what opportunity he gets. He's a fun player. And certainly Jonathan Garvin being gone opens up that spot. I think he's probably ahead of Ladarius Hamilton, in my opinion, for odds to make the 53. And then you just get into some of that roster math, right? Rashawn Gary, at least seems to be potentially trending to be ready to go at some point in camp and maybe week 1, which would be great for the Packers, great for Rashawn Gary, maybe not so great for Brenton Cox and his ability to make the initial 53. If he's ready, you've got Gary, Preston Smith, potentially Justin Hollins, who we'd have to beat out and who has been practicing with the ones so far, Kingsley Enagbare, Lucas Van Ness. And then you're probably talking about Brenton Cox or Ladarius Hamilton as that 6. Maybe he can get ahead of, Justin Hollins, but I don't know. It's just going to ultimately be dependent upon ultimately how many players at the position that they keep. And if you didn't check out my episode from, earlier this week, I think it was, really what we have to sort of focus on now is not just the 53-man roster, but really the 69-man roster. And what you're looking at there is to try to keep as many of the players on your roster that you want to keep and make sure that they don't get claimed by other teams. So it kind of will come down to a little bit of that game at the end of like, all right, with Brenton Cox, do you feel like, you're going to be able to keep him, do you need to keep him on the roster so he doesn't get claimed? Or do you think you can release him and get him back in the practice squad? If you think he could get claimed, then there's a better chance that he stays on the 53 and you just, fudge the numbers somewhere else and keep somebody else on the practice squad. But you really want to make sure you do everything you can to make sure that players don't get claimed and you don't lose any of those players. All right, Vex, thanks so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. If this offense is as bad as last year, how hot is Matt LaFleur's seat? If the offense is bad, I think his play caller seat might be a little bit hot. I don't think I think it would literally take like a 0 or 1 win season for Matt LaFleur's seat to be really hot, maybe 2 wins. I think anything outside of that, they probably give him the benefit of the doubt based on those first 3 13-win seasons. The team could have quit last year when they were 4-8 and they didn't. They win 4 straight to get back in things. I think things would have to go really, really wrong and the team would basically just have to quit and stop responding to him altogether. And I don't see that happening. So that would probably be the first thing. But if the offense is really bad and maybe the team is, 6-11 this year or something like that, I think there's a world in which maybe he could reevaluate if he would still be the play caller on this team, or maybe if he goes in a different direction, maybe Adam Stenovich, they decided to bring in a new offensive coordinator, have somebody else call the plays. I think there's some different things that they could do there, but as a head coach, I think some very catastrophic things would need to happen before they would ultimately get to that point. All right. Matt, thanks so much for the chat. Biggest surprise player so far. I've been thinking about this. I got this question earlier this week on a radio show as well. Obviously it's really, really early, but a lot of the guys that have stood out in practice so far have been sort of the guys that you expect. And if you guys are familiar or watched me or heard me talk at all, you know that I love talking about the Carrington Valentines of the world. And like anyone that's one of those like under the radar players, obviously Tim Boyle, somebody near and dear to me. So like if I can latch onto somebody like that, I absolutely will. I haven't had that player that's really popped out to me so far. Carrington Valentine's probably the closest thing to that. I think Isaiah McDuffie is at a really nice start to camp. He's just such a natural linebacker. There's certainly limitations to his game. He's not the most physically gifted player in the world, but he has great instincts and he knows how to play the position. They've gotten him on the field with some 3 linebacker looks, including Devondre Quay and McDuffie all together. They've done some unique things. He had a really nice pass rush off the edge or a blitz off the edge the other day, and he's just like constantly around the ball. So he's been a really nice player. Luke Tenuta, as I mentioned, has played pretty well at right tackle when he's been given the opportunities, but there hasn't been like that total under the radar player that's been a complete surprise so far. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but like I said, there were basically 2 practices and then a walkthrough, so we're still very, very early into the process. All right. Chris, I'm not sure that that's a question. Sean Ryan, question mark? I think the best thing that we've heard so far is from Matt LaFleur that he is in much better shape than he was a season ago. To be honest, I'm not sure how big of praise that is because it didn't look very great at the beginning of last year. He ends up with the suspension. I thought he was going to have the opportunity if he came in and looked like he did in college that he, remember Jake Hansen and Royce Newman starting at right guard and right tackle week 1 a season ago. I thought if Sean Ryan came in and played like he in practice, like he played at UCLA, I thought he would have won one of those jobs for sure as a top 100 pick. And I should have known better knowing it was a Packers 3rd-round pick. But just based on his tape and based on what I saw in college, like I was really excited about him. I thought for sure he would have won one of those. Instead, just never was in the conversation. I think he was behind basically all of the undrafted and rookie offensive linemen at some point last year, and just didn't develop the season the way that I think anyone would have wanted to. In much better shape, seems to be taking things much more seriously. And I think there's a good chance that he makes the 53 this year. Now it's just, can he be a contributor in some capacity? That still certainly remains to be seen. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Yeah, Owen, there's been a big surprise, and that's that I'm just as busy as I've ever been. But for those of you who don't know, yes, I've gone full time to covering the Packers. I was a associate director with a recruiting staffing agency in my full time job, working like 50 hours a week. So obviously, without that in my life anymore, I would clearly have 50 hours to get other things. It's just been insane. And part of that is because I had a little bit of a vacation to Door County. I had a vacation to San Francisco, but I've been going nonstop. And when I've been not on vacation, I've been making sure that I've covered when I am on vacation. It's just been absolutely crazy. So I would have expected a lot more, just stuff to be done so far and a lot more leeway and time. And that has not happened at all. All of that time has been filled up with stuff. So that's been the biggest surprise, but I'm not complaining. It's been beyond amazing. And obviously it's a dream come true to be able to cover the team. And it's been awesome to be able to go to the press conferences every day. Actually got in the locker room yesterday a little bit. So obviously I'm trying to get back and get you guys a video and updates from camp as soon as I can, but want to be able to do some of that stuff as well. All right. How have Cox and LVN? I talked about Cox already. LVN's been fine. I don't think anything stand out. He had a play on Wednesday where he was unblocked, and the Clay Matthews play where they wouldn't block him and hope that he would just stay with the quarterback on the fake bootleg, and then Clay Matthews would just wreck the play anyway. He had a play like that. That was something he did in college very well. Just screaming down the line of scrimmage. He would have had a tackle at or behind the line of scrimmage on the running back on the play. But you're going to need to block Lucas Van Ness. If you don't, that full 6'5", 275 and his crazy 40 time and insane athleticism is going to blow up a lot of plays. He had a play like that. And I think he's been really good against the run. Again, no pad so far, but I think he's been better against the run than I would have expected at this point in his career. So I think he's going to be a player that has an impact on the season. How big of an impact still remains to be seen. And I think we'll get a much better feel once those pads are on. David with the best chat of the day so far. Yes, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already. Any likes helps the algorithm. So all of that stuff, amazing. And you guys have been beyond awesome this week with the likes, the comments, hitting up the videos and the podcast and everything. So can't say that enough. Thank you guys. You are the absolute best. All right, Adam, important question. What is everyone drinking? Again, I've got the Door County Cherry Wheat, which I'm going to take a break to drink, which is an amazing beer right here in Green Bay, Hinterland. It is the best. But yeah, hit up the chat with what you guys are drinking. Andy, has Kraft had any run with the ones? Yeah, I think in the first couple days, I think he was rotating in with Tyler Davis, Josiah DeGuara, and Luke Musgrave. On the walkthrough portions, he was down on the other side and not working with the ones, but wouldn't read too much into that as well. Doug, no, Whelan did not punt. I thought that was an interesting aspect of Thursday. Pat O'Donnell punted all 14 times that were live, and Daniel Whelan had 0 punts. So a little bit of an interesting decision. My guess is the next time they do punting, Whelan will get a bunch and Pat O'Donnell won't, but I don't know that for sure, and we'll have to kind of wait and see. Andy, thanks so much for the chat. Who am I most excited to see in pads? I think LVN is a really big one, and I want to see what he can do. Luke Musgrave, what he can do in pads, what he looks like. Is the speed the same? Is he still running away from everyone? I want to see Nixon in the slot in pads. That's another one that I'm looking forward to. Wyatt and Slayton for sure along the defensive line. And some of those rookie defensive linemen, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden for sure. Those are probably some off the top of my head that I'm really excited to see, but probably lead off with Musgrave and LVN. All right, how many of those Clover hats do you have? All right, let's see if I can do this. I don't know if I can or not. Probably going to screw things up. Oh, blocked by the light. I've got a handful up there that you can see. I don't know. Maybe there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up there. I think I've got another few in my room upstairs. So I would say probably I don't know, maybe 8 or 10, but probably 3 or 4 in the rotation. And then they all get kind of, I don't know. Then I just get new ones and whatever. By the way, hit up Live Lucky, Black Clover, wherever it is, Live Lucky up here. I've like reached out to them. I'm like, I don't even want like a sponsorship. You don't have to sponsor me. Can I get some free freaking hats for wearing you on the podcast literally like 365 days a year? Live Lucky. I emailed them. I'm just like, hey, like, can we figure something out here? I'm literally wearing your brand. I might have to find a new hat if they don't do something. Come on, Live Lucky. Step your game up. All right, what else do we got here? Went to training camp on Thursday. Didn't see much of Kraft. Is he hurt? Nope, not hurt. Just rotating with the rest of the tight ends and then down with the twos as well. So yeah, not hurt. Just kind of rotating in. I think honestly, this season, guys, I think you're going to see Musgrave, Kraft, DeGuara, Davis. I think all those guys are going to get playing time with just kind of different roles with the tight ends on offense. All right. Let's see. Vex had another super chat here. Oh, we had Rob first, I think. Sorry, Rob. Will the third running back curse be broken this year? Oh, third round curse. Man, I freaking hope so. Tucker Kraft would be the one, hopefully to kind of break that. Obviously, Josiah DeGuara could have a big season as well. Maybe Sean Ryan. Like there's certainly a good chunk of third rounders still on this team. And I'm really hopeful Tucker Kraft can be the guy that really breaks that curse in a major way. But man, they could really use some productivity out of their third rounders this year, and two of them being at tight end in DeGuara and Kraft. Hopefully this is a year. Who knows? But I'm hopeful that Tucker Kraft is the one that ultimately breaks that curse, if not one of the other ones I just mentioned. Vex, thanks for the chat as well. Tight ends are so hard to hit on. I'm concerned we would get very little value out of drafting two tight ends. What positions could they have gotten instead? I wouldn't worry about that, Vex. I mean, I think as you draft in the first round specifically, I think you really want to look at positional value and making sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck and getting the best opportunity to get a premium position or a premium player at a premium position. I think as you start getting to those later rounds, like if you start to get too cute, you can miss out on some really good players just because you're trying to avoid different positions and things like that. But I think the first round, it is really important to do that. I don't, if anyone's upset that they took Luke Musgrave in the second right now, I would not be. I think, he's had some struggles in blocking right now. He's having a tough time. He had a drop in practice the other day. So there's some things that Musgrave still needs to work on, but man, that guy is so athletic. The upside is so insanely huge, and tight ends are very hard to hit on. But man, if you get a mismatch piece at tight end, it gives you all the advantage in the world on offense. So they took a swing. They tried to get two tight ends. That could potentially help them out. And they were in desperate need, right? Like imagine this offense right now with no Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, and they probably sign, I don't know, some cheap like tight end, but maybe they bring a Mercedes Lewis back. But like overall at tight end, you are looking at a very bleak position if they don't go Musgrave and Kraft. So I would not be too upset about them going two tight ends. And the other thing too, is this was known to be a really deep tight end class where you could get really good tight ends on day 2, maybe even day 3 of the draft. And they aggressively attacked a position that was really deep, where I legitimately think in other years, if this tight end class wasn't like very good, I think Musgrave would have gone in the first. I think Kraft would have gone in the second. I think the fact that there were so many good tight ends in this class dropped them. And I think Green Bay was smart to strike and get, in my opinion, what could have been a late first round tight end in Luke Musgrave in a normal tight end draft in round 2, and potentially a second round tight end in a normal draft in Tucker Kraft in round 3. All right, Andrew, thank you so much. Release of Garvin show confidence in Gary and LVN. I don't know that it had so much to do with that, Andrew. Again, thanks so much for the super chat there, but I don't think it had so much to do with that. I think it more had to do with the numbers at edge. You've got Rashawn Gary, you've got Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Enagbare, Justin Hollins has been practicing with the ones. Brenton Cox is a player that could potentially make this team. Ladarius Hamilton, and then after those 6, Ladarius Hamilton and Jonathan Garvin were probably neck and neck for that next guy, right? So if you're Jonathan Garvin, you might be the 8th guy at edge if you're losing out to Hamilton, or at best, maybe the 7th guy that's most likely to make the roster. Green Bay recently switched him to the defensive line rather than edge, and maybe try to see him there. If I had to guess, I'm not reporting this, I don't know this, I haven't heard this. If I had to guess, Green Bay saw the numbers at edge and said, all right, yeah, Garvin's not going to make it at edge. Let's try him at defensive line. And Jonathan Garvin was like, hey, let's just have me move to another team so I can go try edge with another team. If I were Jonathan Garvin and I saw the numbers at edge and they then were looking at moving me to defensive line, a position that I wasn't familiar with and probably equipped to play at that size, I would have been like, hey, let me try to catch on with another team so I can go play edge for someone else. Jonathan Garvin right now, in my opinion, not a 53-man roster player, but if he's like one of your 16 practice squad guys and 2 of your edge players get hurt and you need to call them up week 10 and have them play 10 to 12 snaps as a rotational player, like that's not the worst thing in the world. So I think he still has some value in this league at edge, but I think it was time for Green Bay to move on. He had not attended the non-mandatory portions of OTAs and mini camps over the past 2 seasons, which if you're Jonathan Garvin, that's probably something that you want to be at. So I don't think it had so much to do with, Gary and LVN as it just did with, the numbers game. And it was probably just time for both of them to kind of go in a different direction. Yes. For those of you who don't know, Garvin did get cut. All right. John, where is the love for Sean Clifford? Clearly drafted to be a QB2 for love, and I'm rooting for the guy. Really like some of the stuff I've seen out of Sean Clifford so far. It's early, and maybe really like is a little bit over aggressive, but I think he's a nice football player. I know a lot of people weren't super excited with the early 5th round pick for Clifford. A lot of people in the draft community had him as more of a late 7th or undrafted, priority free agent, undrafted guy. I thought when I went back and watched him, I thought he was draftable, probably more in that 7th round range, but I definitely thought he was a draftable quarterback. And, I so far, I think he's got a pretty good grasp of the system. He made a really nice play where he was getting pressured and he ducked the pressure and kept his eyes downfield. I think it may have been Bo Melton that he completed 2 downfield. I can't remember exactly, but had a nice completion down the field. So there's been a couple plays like that here and there from Clifford, but certainly a long way to go. But I think he has the ability to really earn that backup spot. Not that there's like a ton of great competition on the roster, but yeah. All right. Jay, is it possible that the Packers keep both punters, Whelan for distance and O'Donnell for coffin corner stuff? They kept 2 kickers last year. Could one of them be on the practice squad? Maybe. But I think here's the thing. If Whelan is even close to Pat O'Donnell, if they're even thinking of like, hey, maybe we could keep keep both of these guys, you just go with Daniel Whelan. The reason being is O'Donnell's like 32. Whelan's like 24. Like Whelan's 8 years younger. Whelan makes like $1 million plus less than Pat O'Donnell. The difference between Daniel Whelan and Pat O'Donnell, if they're close, isn't going to affect your season one iota. So let's start developing the younger guy and see if he can be your long-term punter, because Pat O'Donnell's fine, but he's never going to be your long-term guy at the age he's at. So if it's even close, you probably just keep Daniel Whelan and move on from Pat O'Donnell at this point. And that's not cheering against Pat O'Donnell. I think he's a nice punter. I think he has a real opportunity to make the team. He's a really good holder. So I think he probably does make the team, but if it's close and they're really considering like, hey, can we keep both of these guys? They just keep Whelan at that point. No, I don't think Garvin was the one that got away. I will say this. When he was a 7th round pick, I really liked a lot of his tape coming out. I thought he had a lot of upside. I think he was a high RAS guy, if I remember correctly. And then in his first season, he got in very minimal snaps. And in that first season, in those minimal snaps, I thought he showed some flashes. I'm like, hey, there might be something here. Year 2, year 3, and then now going into year 4, like none of that came to fruition. I even thought in year 2 and year 3, he was worse than what he was as a rookie. There was just no development. And I think ultimately that's going to get you off the roster in some capacity. All right, let's see. What else do we got here? Do they have a single mic for all reporters in the interview room? The audio is horrible. So obviously at the podium for Matt and whoever else is at the podium, they've got the mic there that you're hearing. They have one, I think they have like one mic for the rest of it. And I know it's really tough to hear the people asking questions. So yeah, it's not great. I don't know if it's different anywhere else, but I think it's just the one mic. I'm not 1,000,000% sure how they did it, but I don't think it's, set up to be like really get what the interviewers are saying on audio. All right. Wooden and Brooks could be hits on the D-line as rookies. Yeah, we're about to find out a lot more once the pads come on and once we start seeing what they can do there. Colby Wooden has been somebody who ultimately has, been working as like the number 4 guy and has gotten some opportunities to work with the 1. So he certainly seems to be that number 4 guy right now behind Slayton, Wyatt, and Clark. But we're going to see a lot more once those pads come on. Kevin, thanks for the chat. How has Josh Myers been doing? Is he getting competition from Zach Tom? Not yet. No, like Zach Tom's been primarily working at tackle, specifically right tackle. Yash got some time at right tackle today with the 1s. And then Zach Tom has gotten some time at center with the 3s. It's been Jake Hansen at the center with the 2s. But so far through OTAs, mini camps, and training camp, Josh Myers has taken every single snap that I've seen at center with the 1s. There hasn't been any competition there whatsoever. So right now it seems like Josh Myers is the guy. It's really tough to tell interior offensive line stuff from where we're watching and with no pads on yet. So I would be hard pressed to say if he's doing well, bad, or anything in between. But I think it's at least a vote of confidence so far that there's been no competition at center, at least at starting center whatsoever. All right. Let's see. Wonder how Lou Nichols is doing. I haven't seen much from Nichols so far, but he did get some opportunities in the walkthroughs with the ones today. So that's a good sign for him. He's had some drops in mini camps and OTAs and one the other day in training camp, just in like individual drills. I think he really has to work on his hands a little bit. He was never really a great receiving back coming out of college. So that aspect of his game is going to have to improve. But like I said, he got some time with the ones and walkthroughs. So we'll see what that means for him moving forward. All right. I have not seen the new areas that have been completed inside Lambeau. I do hope to see them at some point, but I don't know if they're going to open that up to the media or not. All right, Joshua, can Jordan Love be a Pro Bowl quarterback this year? I don't know. Like everyone has the ability to be a Pro Bowler, right? And what is it? Just a skills competition in a flag football game now. So I'm not even sure exactly what all goes into that. But let's just answer it as like, do I think he can be a top 3 quarterback in the NFC this year? I think that would be a stretch. I mean, if you're going to do it, the NFC is the place to do it, right? You got Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. I don't know. It's not a great division or conference, excuse me, for quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, just not. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of unknowns at quarterback throughout the conference. So could he potentially get in the conversation? Maybe, but let's just take baby steps with Jordan Love. Like, let's just see him be a competent starter first. And then if so, then let's start talking about Pro Bowl stuff. But right now I will take competence from Jordan as we see him start his first season as a true starter. And we can kind of go from there. Yeah. And exactly, Lee. Mac Jones somehow made a Pro Bowl his rookie year. So you never quite know. But I wouldn't necessarily bet on that. All right. I believe, Jay, that Sean Ryan's been running with the 2s at left guard. I think Royce Newman's been at right guard, Hanson at center, Caleb Jones and Rasheed Walker at tackle. So I think it's been like Caleb Jones and then obviously like Yash Nyman too a little bit running when he's gone with the 2s. But Jones, Walker, and then Nyman with the 2s at tackle, Ryan and Newman at guards, and then Hanson at center with the 2s. Joey, how has Cameron McDonald looked? I haven't seen much of him in training camp so far. And again, basically 2 practices in, right? And you've got, let's see, like 6 guys hurt with a 91-man roster. So you've got 85 guys-ish, wandering around on any given practice day through 2 practices. And both have been about an hour and a half. So if I dedicated, if I wanted to try to watch every single player through 2 practices, I would have gotten to see every player for 2 minutes. Obviously, I want to watch guys like Jordan Love and Lucas Van Ness and everyone else more than that. So haven't been able to see quite everyone yet. But McDonald in OTAs and mini camps was somebody that I thought was maybe could be used in like that H-back sort of Josiah DeGuara role a little bit. And a little bit of juice after the catch, some really good energy. So I've liked that about him. But in camp, I haven't really seen anything out of McDonald so far. This is a good one. Murph. Like hearing about all the pre-snap motion on the offense that the offense plans to utilize. How has the defense responded to it? I think the defense has been really sound in everything so far in their communication. You can tell this offseason that communication on defense has been a very, very strong emphasis for Green Bay. But to bring up your point, yeah, the offense has used a lot of motion so far. They've been moving a ton of guys around. You'll see multiple players moving from one side to the other, and then a motion back the other way, and then a motion post-snap. Like, they are giving the defense a lot to think about with pre-snap motion, post-snap motion, with jet sweeps, with end arounds, with reverses, with bunch formation. Like, they are giving, they're throwing the kitchen sink at the defense. Like I said, overall, I feel like the defense has done a good job responding to it. I haven't really seen, too much in the course of like blown coverages or mistakes. So I think it's been good, but I've really liked that the offense has thrown all of that at them. All right. Was I surprised that Jonathan Owens wasn't working with the ones today? Seems like it's Rudy Ford's gig to lose. Not necessarily surprised. Owens has received some time with the ones, if memory serves. Don't 1,000,000% quote me on that, but I think he has in the first couple of days of practice. But yeah, I would say so far it's been Rudy Ford primarily working with Darnell Savage. Dallin Levitt's got a little bit of time there. Owens, I believe, has got a little bit of time there. Tavarius Moore saw his first time with the ones today. So I think ultimately that job is going to be very much up for grabs. But yes, if I were a betting person today, I would probably bet Savage and Rudy Ford week 1. But I think that's going to be a constant competition at safety. I'm with you, Steven. Super glad about Nixon. And here's the thing, Nixon's been good at just about anything that he has done. And now he's going to get a real shot at defense. And I'm not betting against that man. Like anytime he gets opportunity, he makes the most of it. I think he's going to make the most of it on defense as well. All right, what have I seen from Quay so far in camp? Hoping he can make a massive step forward this year. Me too. That would be awesome. I did think that he had a really nice play the other day where he immediately knifed through the line of scrimmage using his speed and athleticism. Had an opportunity to make a play in the backfield. So hard to tell if what plays would have been able to be made because they kind of let up and they obviously don't go for a tackle or anything like that. But just seeing him play a little bit more instinctual football, I think has been really important for him. And I think something he can kind of continue to work on, but that's all it's going to come down to. When he is playing fast and not thinking, he is flying around and making plays. When he has to think more and not playing quite as instinctual, or if he gets caught up on a block and can't use that speed, that's where Quay struggles a little bit more. So hoping the game comes a little bit easier to him in year 2. He shouldn't have to call plays like he did for some of the season last year when Devondre Campbell was out. So hope all of that stuff is helpful for Quay. And so far, that was the main thing that I've seen so far. Soup, what a great name. My first year following you and your expert analysis. Excited for the season. Thanks for sharing. Hey, really appreciate that, man. I've seen a lot of comments from you guys and they've been so positive, and I just really, really appreciate that. Was that Justice? I didn't even realize that was Justice. But yeah, I do think it's Rudy Ford's job to lose. All right, what else do we got here? Goody keeps knocking these late free agent signings out of the park. Za'Darius, Douglas, Campbell, Nixon, who's next? Well, Za'Darius wasn't late. Douglas was in season. Campbell was late. Nixon was not late. That was early in the process as well. But yes, I think he's done. I think Rick Wagner was later. So he's done a really good job ultimately finding some players and certainly some bargains, right? Like Keyshawn Nixon literally got the lowest possible contract that he could have for the amount of years that he had played in the NFL last year with $0 signing bonus. He didn't get any signing bonus. He got the bare minimum he could possibly make. And they found him, and like what an absolute treasure he has been so far in the roster. I think he's going to absolutely get paid. This next offseason, he can be anything at corner and show that he can continue to be a star on special teams. Thanks for the chat, Chris. It's early, but in your mind, is Jake Hansen currently on the team? I'll take a drink while I think of that. I'm going to say probably not. I think Royce Newman and Jake Hansen are going to have to really show something in order to continue on. And I'm a really big believer that you have value in this league until you show that you don't. And kind of what I mean by that is Jake Hansen and Royce Newman have had opportunities. They've had opportunities to start. They've had opportunities to play significant snaps. Royce Newman played over 1,000 snaps 2 seasons ago, right? So they've had legitimate opportunities to show what they are capable of. And they ultimately didn't really make the most of those opportunities. I think if you were to just regardless of what they do in practice, if you're a GM or a coach and you're thinking, what do I have in Royce Newman or Jake Hansen? You're going to go back to the tape last year when they actually started and use that as your biggest differentiating factor. Meanwhile, Sean Ryan, Caleb Jones, Rasheed Walker, Luke Tenuta, you don't know. They haven't had those opportunities. So you feel probably better in a way about some of your younger guys because they haven't gone out and failed yet. In some capacity, Jake Hansen and Royce Newman have kind of gone out and failed. And that's not to say either of them can't be good football players because they can continue to develop. We as Packer fans should know better than any other fan base that a breakout age and a breakout player can happen at any time, at any different phase of their career. Look at Rasul freaking Douglas, right? Rasul was a 3rd round pick. Speaking of 3rd round pick curse, but Rasul was a 3rd round pick. And he went through a variety. I think he played it was on 3 different rosters. When Green Bay picked him up that year, I think he was on 3 different teams that year, just that year, before Green Bay picked him up off of the Cardinals practice squad. He's become an awesome player for Green Bay. Sometimes it's system, sometimes it is how they are used, sometimes it's culture, sometimes it's just finally getting that confidence that you need to go out and be a good player. So hopefully Royce and Jake find that this year and they can go out and be awesome players for Green Bay. That would be great. If they can't, unfortunately, their tape, I would argue, hasn't been quite good enough. Now, what I will say specifically about Royce in that scenario is Royce as your 5th offensive lineman or a starting offensive lineman, not great, right? that's not ideally what you want. If he's your fifth guy, if he's your starter, you're constantly looking to probably replace that player, right? But Royce is like your eighth or ninth offensive lineman. That I don't mind. Like he's easily good enough to be your eighth or ninth offensive lineman, a guy with starting experience who's played 1,000 snaps 2 seasons ago. Like I don't mind Royce as an eighth or ninth guy at all. So a lot of that is expectations. Not all of your 53-man players can be starting capable players. It's just the way that it is, right? So, but he's going to have to show that he is more valuable, and same with Jake Hansen, that he's more valuable to keep than some of those players that just haven't had the opportunity yet. And it's going to be hard to keep to cut the Luke Tenutas, the Rashid Walkers, the Caleb Jones, the Sean Ryans, because they are still potential players and they may get a little bit more of an opportunity. All right. All right. Actually, before I get there, Lee, was Z not late? No, Z was right at the beginning of free agency. Z, Preston, Turner, and Amos all signed right at the beginning of free agency. Huge deals. It was like a 2-day, like Goody got freed and was able to spend all of the money that Ted did not spend at the end of his era. And he just opened up the credit card and went, I want these 4 guys, and spent a ton of money right away on Turner, Z, Amos, and Preston. All right. 80, what is the plan for safety? Are we waiting for a possible veteran cut down casualty? I don't think so. They've had the opportunity to bring in some veterans, and what they've basically chosen is to go with Darnell Savage and then 4 guys on 1-year deals? Dallin Levitt, Rudy Ford, Tavarius Moore, and Jonathan Owens. So that 4 veterans on 1-year prove-it deals. And I think the thing here is if you've got one good safety, if Savage is like living up to his first round expectation and played kind of like he did in 2020, I actually never hate like just going out and finding that one safety, that like a veteran safety that's had some success, that's maybe towards the end of his career. Like I think you can, like, I go back to, and not that he was a veteran really at the time, but I go back to 2010. If you've got a really good defense, you can win a Super Bowl with Charlie Pepper as one of your safeties, right? Like I'm a firm believer that, especially with the way Green Bay plays their safeties, if you've got one really good one, like they had with Nick Collins in that season, you can get away with another one. I think the bigger issue is like they don't have that number one guy. And I think they could go out and sign a John Johnson. He'd probably be their best safety from the day that he got to camp. But I think right now they're just hoping that one of these other guys can take that other safety spot, and that Savage finally lives up to his expectations and plays a little bit more like he did in 2020. But they're going to wait for somebody to step up, whether that's Rudy Ford, Tavarius Moore, Anthony Johnson Jr., Darnell Savage, whomever. Innis Gaines is another one. Like whoever steps up is going to get that opportunity. And I think that could be a little bit of a revolving door throughout the course of the season until they find a couple guys who can fill that role and really do what they want. Chris, right? Speaking of Mr. Gaines, is he on the roster? I mean, I hope so. I think he's done enough to earn it. I think he does. Like, I think he's the second best slot guy right now. Well, all right, if we were really to label it, it's like Jair's in that conversation, right? But like they're not going to play Jair in the slot. So I think it's Keyshawn Nixon as your top slot. And then I think Innis might legitimately be their second best guy there. You could do Savage there as well, I guess. But I think he can legitimately play there. He can give you a little bit at safety. I think he's a really good special teams player, but it probably is now or never for Innis Gaines. And he's right on that line, right? And a lot of it's going to be dependent upon what else happens at safety. But I will say this. There are basically 2 safeties right now who could make this team that are under team control in 2024 for next year. Savage last year of his deal, and we just talked about all the guys on 1-year deals, Owens, Levitt, Ford, and Tavarius Moore, right? All on 1-year deals. The only 2 guys that are under, the one that's under contract is Anthony Johnson Jr. as a 7th-round pick on his initial deal. And then Innis Gaines would be an exclusive rights free agent next year, which is basically a player option on a vet minimum deal. So those are the only 2 guys that they have under team control next year at safety. So if they show anything, they're going to keep those guys over the veteran safeties, and because they have team control over them. So he's got a chance, but he's got still a lot to prove the rest of this offseason. Why are there game day inactives with the pull-ups from the practice squad? I do not see why they cannot have 53 active on game days. I think what they're really trying to avoid is specialization, right? So if you can keep, 53 guys on game day, you're probably not going to play, 53 guys legitimately. So then you've got, all right, so I'm going to keep an extra kicker on game day so I can have one guy that just boots the ball out of the end zone. And I'm going to keep a guy that just does this one thing. And I'm going to just keep a guy that does this one thing. Like they want it to be a legitimate, like 48-man roster. And we're getting closer, right? It was, I think, 40 46, and then it got to 48, and now you can keep 49 if one of them's a third quarterback. So they kind of keep adding to it, but I think they're trying to avoid some of that real like specialization of labor and trying to make it so that you have like a legitimate roster and not just kind of a bunch of gimmicky guys that are making it on game days. All right. If Zach Tom wins the left tackle spot over Nijman, who would be the first guard off the bench in case of injury? Newman. All right, so a couple things. I think you're talking right tackle because Bakhtiari is going to be your left tackle, but Nijman is, I think, at this point your super sub, right? Or excuse me, Zach Tom is your super sub. So let's just say it is Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, John Runyon Jr., and Zach Tom, which I think is a really good chance that it's going to be those five starting week one. All right, Bakhtiari goes down. In that situation, you probably just put Yashin at left tackle and keep Zach Tom at right so you don't have to change two people, right? If left guard goes down, in this case, if Elton goes down, I think Zach moves to left guard, Yash goes in at right tackle. Myers goes down, Zach moves to center, and then Yash goes to right tackle. Runyon goes down, Zach moves to right guard, Nijman goes to right tackle. So, and then if, obviously Zach is your right tackle. If he goes down, Nijman's your right tackle. So I think Zach is basically just kind of your super sub. And I think they're not going to do that as much anymore with Elton Jenkins unless they absolutely have to, and really try to keep, Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari together, working in tandem as one of the best left sides of any offensive line in football, in my opinion. All right. Any more questions we got here? And if I missed them earlier, sorry, I know that there were a bunch, but feel free to ask them again if I missed them so far. Again, any super chats, I will make sure I get to. I'll probably go for about another 5 to 10 minutes here if we have enough questions. Thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate the kind words. Try to do my best. I think one of the things that's really cool is obviously you guys know I'm a Packer fan, right? And I know like some people will be like, man, you have to walk a line of like, you're a Packer fan, but you're trying to cover the team. It's like, no, it's the easiest thing in the world because when I'm in the building, when I'm at Lambeau or I'm covering practice, it's like when you go to your job, there's certain things that everyone at their day job, you don't go in like you're at the bar when, bar Andy and HR Andy were two pretty different people. So like fan Andy and at the stadium Andy or at practice Andy, two very different people. But I think the cool thing is that as a fan, like I can kind of constantly ask myself, all right, what do I want to know about this team? Like, I kind of want to know all of this. All right, let's go and find out and let's look at that at practice and let's watch the film and let's do the research. And then, I can go study that stuff and then kind of regurgitate it back to you guys. And it's just really easy to figure out the things that I think are going to be really fun to cover. So yeah, that's that. But I really appreciate the kind words. What am I drinking, Cody? I've got the Door County Cherry Wheat from Hinterland. So one of my favorite beers for sure. Most important depth player. There's a variety of different ways to go. I mean, I think it just depends on what you want to talk about with Zach Tom, right? Because I think we just went over all the different things that he can provide. I mean, he can play. When we talk about 5 position players on the offensive line, like those are so freaking rare. In Green Bay, it's probably 2 of them, right? And Elton Jenkins and Zach Tom. But even if he's starting at right tackle, the fact that he can provide depth at all 4 of the other positions, I think is really, really huge. I mean, obviously AJ Dillon being a depth piece to Aaron Jones is a really nice piece to have. Yeah, I think I would, but I think I would probably go with Zach Tom, even if he's technically a starter. I think he's just the ability to be depth at every other position along the line, I think is super important. What role do the refs play at practice? So it depends. When they actually bring in the like legitimate refs, like they'll do a little bit more like legitimate stuff. I think they bring in some like practice refs that are just kind of keeping an eye on like offsides and some egregious stuff. And they'll kind of throw some, flags and stuff like that. But I think it's more of just like more of the basics, but every once in a while you'll get the legitimate refs in and then, they'll legitimately call it like it were in a game. Why isn't Caleb Jones used on special teams blocking kicks? I don't know. I think, so just because you're tall doesn't mean you can jump high, right? But, it's something worth considering. Maybe I'll ask Rich Bisaccia someday if that's something that he could do. But he's got some really impressive size, 6'9" with a really big wingspan. So you would think that like you would want to use that guy in the middle just to get a hand up. Because how many times you see a guy just get a hand up and be able to do something? But I don't know. It's a good question, Don. Jimmy, nice to see you, buddy. Are you surprised with Hollins more reps with the ones than Kingsley? I would say yes. I mean, Yes and no. No, because that's what they did at OTAs and mini camps. So I'm not surprised that they carried it over. But surprised that through OTAs, mini camps, and now training camps, that Hollins has been ahead of Inigbare and LVN. Yeah, that is surprising. But we've seen this before, guys, right? Like Ben Braden is a great example on the offensive line. I think Ben Braden spent like time in OTAs and mini camps as like the starting right guard for like a huge chunk of camp, and then was rotating for like the rest of camp, and he doesn't even make the team. I don't even think he made the practice squad. So it's like they handed a bunch of starting reps all throughout the offseason to a guy that didn't even end up on the roster in any capacity. Like that just happened. Like last year, who's a linebacker, Ray Wilborn. Ray Wilborn got snaps in early camp in OTAs with the ones. And then didn't even make the roster. So like that stuff happens from time to time, and you just, go with it. And I think my guess is more as like Inigbare and LVN, they're motivating them to have to earn it more than anything else. But who knows? Maybe Justin Holland's just going to be freaking awesome, and I'd take that as well. All right. Let's see. Fast forward to February. Super Bowl is Packers versus Jets. Who has more to prove? I mean, the Jets have more pressure in that situation, right? The Packers are playing with house money at that point. Like they're not even like expected to be a playoff team per the Vegas odds makers and the sports books. They have the fourth worst odds in the NFC North. They have the worst odds of any NFC North team as a Super Bowl team. They have the worst odds of any NFC North team as a playoff team. Like the sports books do not like Green Bay at all. So if it's Packers, Jets in the Super Bowl, Green Bay is playing with house money, and Aaron Rodgers and the Jets would have a lot more pressure in that situation. I'm sure the Jets would be favorites in that game as well. But what a freaking game that would be! I'll take it. Sign me up, Brandon. Let's see. I'll probably just do a couple more here, guys. I appreciate all of you. I see that, Joe. I'm not even posting it. Let's see. I'll add to this lead that talking about just the Jets are like, I think they have a very, very tough schedule. I think they're going to get buoyed a bit by the fact that they've got all this newfound energy, and with Aaron, I think Aaron, I've talked about this the entire time, that this was what was best for everyone. It was best for the Packers. It was best for Jordan. It was best for Aaron. Like everyone needed this. It just was time, and I think Aaron's going to play at a very high level. But I do think it's going to be a very difficult conference. It's a very difficult division, and their schedule is insanely tough. So I don't think it's going to be easy sledding for the Jets in any type of situation. All right, last one, unless there's any more super chats that come through. Would signing a veteran receiver be in consideration as the regular season progresses? I think a couple things would need to happen, right? Like it would probably need to be the right player. Like who's going to be out there right now that's a veteran wide? Like there's nobody out there as a veteran wide receiver that you would be super excited about being on this roster that would take snaps away from your young players, right? You just want to play those young players as much as possible and let them grow with Jordan Love. But if the young players aren't playing well and this offense is scuffling and there's a player out there that you think could help, yeah, Goody's going to maybe take a look at him. Or more importantly, if if there's wide receivers that get hurt, and again, especially if it's like Watson and Dobbs, and you don't feel comfortable going with Samori Toure and Jaden Reed and, Dontavian Wicks as your top three wide receivers, and you feel like you need to bring in a veteran to give Jordan a little bit better of a chance, then yeah, you could see it in those situations. But I think they're going to want to see these young guys play as much as absolutely possible. All right, guys, I'm going to finish my cherry wheat offline. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Appreciate you a ton. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the podcast 365 days a year. Tell a friend about it. Tell your mom. Your mom's going to love it as well. But appreciate you guys a ton. I'll be right back here tomorrow with an all new episode, 365 days a year. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.